superfans is the buzzword these days. Everyone is trying to figure out a way to monetize their superfans. Is it going to be something like a Vault, Even, Patreon, Bandcamp, OpenStage, or whatever?
My bet would be Shopify. Really, whenever any of these new products or ideas they start to gain momentum, I do feel like it will probably be absorbed or be a part of the Shopify ecosystem because it is such a behemoth.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's the gold standard for online marketplaces. It's very difficult to compete against something that size, right? Just with the inherent scale of them as an entity. And I really do think that it will be a consolidation of all of these add-on services that just exist within the network and within the ecosystem.
Yeah. What's going on? Welcome to The New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Third edition is out now everywhere. Hardcover, ebook, audiobook. However you like books, you can find the book. Today, my guest is Seamus Minahan. He is the CEO and co-founder of the merch company, Downright Merch. But they just merged with Overcast Merch, and they're now a company called Armada. This is very new. This actually, as of this taping, just happened today. And this new merger, now they will have 170 employees across multiple international locations. Downright is based in Boston. Overcast is based in Long Beach. But now they'll have people all over the world. They've paid out over $30 million to clients, and they currently manage over 250 stores for artists such as Thrice, Tom Morello, Owl City, Death Row Records. They've done merch for in the past, and they also manage brands like Everyday Astronaut, Grillos, Pickles, do merch for these brands, as well as the chef and influencer Matty Matheson of The Bear fame and everything else that he does, his books, all that stuff. They do his merch as well. Today's episode is all about merch. We get into the weeds on band merch, touring band merch, online merch. We talk about pre-order campaigns, pre-release. We talk about fan clubs, direct-to-consumer, super fans, all that stuff. If you're not paying attention to how you're managing your merch, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. This is the way that artists are able to thrive and survive in many cases as artists, by really getting smart about their merch operation. So we talk about how the merch works, how their company works, what the business model is. If you don't know anything about how a merchandising company works for artists at a mid-level scale and above, and they talk about their business model and how all of this works, from the design to the fulfillment, everything in between, how they engage the artists. I press them, how artists are creatively managing their merch on the road, how they're capturing that fan data, how they're doing it online. We talk about how much of an artist business is online versus in person at the show. I think the answer will surprise you. It surprised me. So yeah, this is all about merch. And I encourage you to stick to the end with this episode, because you'll definitely walk away with some knowledge and hopefully a lot of stuff that you don't know or haven't thought about on how to manage your merch and the importance of it. You can find Armada now. This is the new company. Their website is poweredbyarmada.com. You can find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials. Find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram. Right now, most importantly, though, if you wouldn't mind pausing this, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you haven't done this, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, all of that stuff if you want this show to continue to populate your feeds. But actually, most importantly, if you wouldn't mind, go to aristake.com, get on our email list. We actually talk a lot about email marketing, SMS marketing in this episode as well. Email is the best way to stay in touch with us. aristake.com, get on that email list. All right, let's kick into the show. Seamus Minahan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ari. How are you?
Hi, good. So I know that you recently announced some pretty big news especially in the indie merch space. And I believe, people are listening to this later after the fact, but I think this news is breaking today and recently. So, tell us about this new merger of two powerhouses in the indie merch space. And let's start there, and then we'll kind of go backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. The news is brand new. You know, this is new. As of yesterday, actually, Downright
Yeah.
Merchandise and Overcast Merchandise, we've effectively merged both of our companies to create Armada, which is
Mhm.
the coming together of both companies that have been around for many years in the industry, and we've
Yeah.
effectively partnered up to to create a new entity called Armada.
Cool. So yeah, that's the news. And so tell me uh, why this merger and how did this come to be?
There's a lot of reasons. I think what we do specifically is full brand merchandise management for artists and record labels and influencers, and a
Hmm.
lot of the same services and clients were being handled on the Overcast side. And we've, the thing about not just the music industry, but specifically the merch part of the industry is it's such a small
Yeah.
circle. So we've kind of been in similar spaces and worked together quite a bit throughout the years. And we
Yeah.
really wanted to leverage both of our strengths to come together to really form a really strong force in the industry to be able to leverage both of our strengths and create this new entity together.
Cool. So you talk about brand management. How does that work in practice when you're working with artists? And just, I guess, maybe give me an overview for people that aren't familiar with Downright Merch, and just kind of how the company functions, what your relationship is with artists and labels, and those partnerships, and just the business structure, the model, and just what you do, I guess, overall.
Yeah, so we partner with artists, and what we say is that we maximize their brand through the creation and distribution of merchandise. So we'll partner with artists or brands or properties, and we come together to maximize their brand and their merchandise through the creation. So actually producing and coming up with new product lines and manufacturing, so screen printing and embroidering and all of the intricacies with the actual creation of the product and the distribution of it. So we have our own fulfillment center in Methuen, Massachusetts, where
Hmm.
we're handling all the direct to consumer shipping and the logistics part of the business. So really we come in and we partner with artists and we give them a full scope of services to really optimize their brand through the physical product, right? Through the merchandise that we create hand in hand with the artist, and that's really at the core of what we offer, and that's the value that we offer our clients. Is really coming together with them and understanding their brand, and then strategizing how we can continue to elevate it and promote it through great merchandise.
Cool. Give me some examples. You've used a lot of buzzwords, which I get, but like, can you break it down for me and what that actually means? Are you making, you said physical product. What physical product are we talking about? Are you talking vinyl records? Are we talking t-shirts? Are we talking hats? You mentioned distribution. What does that mean exactly? Are you distributing this wholesale to the artists for them to sell on the road? Are you running the merch shops on their websites? Is this a third party doing this? Do you sell it on a storefront? Do you work in physical stores? Yeah, just give me like a breakdown more specifically of what you do.
Yeah, honestly, it's a little bit of all of that, and to
Okay.
really to really best service artists and predominantly independent artists right now, we really have to be flexible and be able to deliver on all of the areas that you described. I think a
Okay.
great example would be when we have maybe a smaller artist that is just signed to a label, or maybe they're unsigned and they
Hmm.
don't have the infrastructure around their merchandise business already established. So typically we're partnering sometimes directly with the artist or with the manager or with somebody that's on their team to come in and say, okay, where are the points that we can partner to be able to build the foundation of their merchandise business together. So, an example would be, we did this really cool collaboration with Death Row Records, where we had one of our clients, Monarch Music, actually, they for their 30th anniversary, They were able to print a ton of new designs with that iconic logo, the Death Row logo, where we came in and we actually produced a whole new line of apparel for them on new garments and just kind of a more modernized type of fashion forward type garment that we worked together to find, um, and we built a brand new store for them, and we coordinated all of the actual printing and the fulfillment for their new store that celebrated the 30-year anniversary of the brand. So really, we
Hmm.
you know we took an iconic brand that we were kind of given the privilege to work with, and kind of retroactively said, okay, these are the areas that we can come in and really build a great product line that we feel like not only caters to your core audience, but maybe will be appealing to a new customer base that has heard of Death Row. Obviously, they're familiar with the music, but maybe a modern take on the merchandise will be really appealing to them, and we can use that to push the brand forward and attract a new audience. And that would be an example of how like the physical product and kind of putting a new modern touch on it can
Yeah.
continue to elevate such a legendary brand like Death Row in partnership with a great client. So that's just one instance where we were able to partner with more of a legacy artist and a legacy brand like Death Row. But that one
Right.
example can be completely applicable to any artist that we partner with.
Yeah. So talk to me about artists. So and what you're doing specifically. So if you're working with an artist, are you getting in the room with them saying, okay, we got this new album. Let's conceive some physical product around it. Or we have the album cover. Maybe you have some designs or a drawing or something like that, and like let's come out with some new merch. And do you actually work from the conception stage, or do they say, "Hey, I need to order 1,000 T-shirts. Here's the design. You turn it around and ship me 1,000, and I pay you for that, and then we're done here." Or are you with them from like conception? Let's get this together. You handle all the printing, manufacturing. You actually work the fulfillment. People ordering it online. You're stocking the tours, all of that. Where does your job begin and where does it end? And like, what are you facilitating versus other members of the artist team facilitating?
It would be easy if there was a standardized method for every single artist, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but the fact is that it just varies from every single artist because everybody has their own perception and their own idea of how their brand should be represented, right? So
Okay.
it really depends on what the artist's specific needs are. That's really the
Okay.
answer. Where we do have a lot of artists that will give us just like an inkling of a design and say, "Hey, this is all I got right now. This is conceptually these are some of the things that we like that we've seen other bands or other brands accomplish with their merchandise. Can you guide us
Mm-hmm.
in the direction of being able to build our merchandise line and kind of our catalog around just this kind of shred of an idea?" And then we'll
Mm-hmm.
come in and we start at the first level, which is product development, right? We have our creative team comes in and starts hashing out ideas, and we're passing it by the artist through every single phase of the process, right? So we'll come up with ideas for the artist to give us direct feedback on, and it's in that scenario, it's really a true collaboration from the jump. And those are really the projects that I feel like we get the most maybe the most fulfillment out of, where we can see a concept from the beginning all the way through to the product shipping from our facility and reaching the fan. So that just is an example of how in depth and kind of all encompassing our services are to artists. But to the second example that you gave, there are a lot of scenarios where we'll have a band that will come to us and say, "Hey, Armada, we have a tour coming up in 6 weeks. Here's the designs that we already have." A lot of artists actually have their own preferred creative team on staff where they'll do all the designs and they'll do all of the creative work and then send us all of the assets, and they'll say, "Here, we just need 1,000 t-shirts. We need 1,000 t-shirts. Hey, we also need you to be monitoring sales throughout the tour so that you can ensure that we stay stocked up and that there's no product shortage if we hit a couple shows where sales are kind of through the roof. those are some of the
Yeah.
areas where we keep a keen eye, and we're really involved on the day to day. So to answer your
Yeah.
question, it really varies from artist to artist.
Sure. How do you monitor sales for artists that are on tour like that?
Well, we do it specifically through a platform called At Venue, and that's
Uh-huh.
our default tool that we use, where all of our account managers, who are the ones that are dealing with the artist or dealing with management on a day to day, they're utilizing a platform called At Venue, and that gives us the
Sure.
tools to be able to see sales in real time. That way, we can react quick if we need to do a reorder, or we need to pivot and do a design on another garment. It gives us full visibility so that we can plan accordingly.
Nice. And are you also managing artists' online merch operations too?
That's a big part of what we do. I would say that the two main pillars of what we provide is on the e-commerce and D2C side, and on the touring and live event side. So the two are
Got it.
pretty balanced in terms of where all of our, the majority of our resources and our team's effort go towards. So we are, when I started Downright Merch, we
Yeah.
were really focused on the D2C and the fulfillment side of the business, and that's really where we cut our teeth. I'd say is figuring out the best way to set up these online stores for artists who previously, I feel like, really didn't have the ability or the technology to be able to set up their own custom website where they can sell their merch directly to fans. Historically, there's kind of always been like intermediaries, right, where you either have
Right.
to sell into stores, or you have to use another company's online web store and just sell as a vendor through their site. But with the advent of platforms like Shopify and Bandcamp, what what we saw is it would be really cool if we put our time and resource into building custom web stores and platforms for the artist to own
Mm.
the customer experience and really have that direct connectivity with their audience and the ability to sell directly to them.
Nice. Right. And so are you seeing that artists these days are selling, let's say in a year span where they release an album, they're doing a pretty sizable tour. Are artists selling more online or more in person on tour?
I think that now it's probably closer to a 50-50 split than it's
Wow.
than it's ever been since we've been in business, at least. If you asked me that question 2-3 years ago, it would be 100% geared towards e-commerce, because
Hmm.
we were in COVID and bands weren't on the road,
Wow.
and that was
Sure.
really, where we kind of found our stride on the e-commerce and direct to consumer part of our businesses. We were forced to stand that up as a service that artists are able to utilize, because half of their income stream was just completely shut down for the foreseeable future. So
Yeah.
that was the reason why we led first with e-commerce, is just because we had to. And in March of 2020, we were getting calls from like every single band that we work with, a ton of new bands saying, all of our tours are canceled forever, I think. So we want to pivot to be able to at least continue selling and keep the lights on. And that was the reason why we led so heavily in those early days to
Mhm.
e-commerce and really building out that part of the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. So these days, I think it's probably surprising to a lot of people listening that 50% of an artist's merch business is online. Can you break down some campaigns or talk to me how that even works? Like, what are bands doing? What are artists doing these days to sell so much merch online? And what are they selling? How are they selling it? Give me some strategies or tactics or anything like that. Because for me, I would have expected you to say it's 95% in person, 5% online when someone is like a super, 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 super fan and they like find their way to the artist's website, which nobody does anymore, or they're on Spotify and they're like, you know what? That t-shirt looks dope. I'm going to buy it there. But like 50%, that literally blows my mind. I can't even comprehend that. So like, talk to me how that works.
Yeah, I would say that also taking into consideration that an online store is open 24/7, 365 days a year. So just the access to be able to shop
Sure.
at any point in time online probably makes it so those scales are kind of evened out. We see
Yeah.
big spikes in artist sales on tour in comparison to their ecom business. Obviously, when they're on the road, but maybe a band will tour the U.S. twice a year. They'll do a headline tour and a support tour. Then they'll do some international dates, and that's really the most common kind of cyclical nature of what artists are doing, right? But
Yeah.
one point that I would make is that the blend between selling at shows and selling online is it's almost coming together now with we see a lot of artists that go out with QR codes where they're able to scan a QR code at the merch table and they're able to shop online immediately. And because for our artists, we're doing
Hmm.
for the vast majority of them, we're doing both the online business and the e-commerce business. There's less of a divide between both of them now, and the two are kind of becoming, I don't want to say interchangeable, but it's part of a very, you got to do both to have a really nice, well-rounded merch business, I feel like. So we try to put strategy at the front to kind of make both of them work in partnership. Where we'll send an artist on the road with the ability to have a QR code where a fan can go and scan a QR code, submit their email, submit their name, and then the next time that the artist does a merch drop, maybe they get a coupon or they get early access to one of these online exclusives that we release at a later date with the artist. So there's an example of how both are not divided down the middle, but we really try to approach it as we're trying to build the artist's merch business in a full scope. Um, for the second half of your question, like specific ways that artists are actually selling online right now,
Yeah.
obviously social media is the biggest driving force to get fans to these platforms that we're building. But that's not the only thing. We put a lot of time and resource into email marketing, SMS marketing, and we do have a pretty robust platform for how we're actually managing those sort of digital marketing strategies that we handle on behalf of our artists. So that's a big
Hmm.
area where the days of just putting up a static graphic on social media and directing people to a link, maybe that's not the best way to do it. There's probably a lot more depth that we can help achieve by getting creative and just a lot more strategic in the way that we get the merchandise and really the sales material in front of the fans. Um,
Hmm.
or just the new products in front of the fans. So we really
So,
try to lead
yeah.
with those sort of strategies.
Are you handling marketing then as well?
For a lot of our artists, yes.
Oh, wow. So what is your business model? How do you make money?
So we typically take a percentage of all online sales, and then we're
Okay.
typically taking a small percentage of the of the tour sales, and
Okay.
we're also providing product directly to our clients for supply. If it's not like I said before, we have a lot of artists that come to us and say, hey, we're only looking to order 1,000 t-shirts or whatever it may be. We're also producing and selling to those clients at wholesale. So those are really
Got
the
it.
three main areas: is the supply and the custom apparel that we sell clients, the percentage that we take for the online sales and the e-commerce management, and the third way is the active tour manage,
Hmm.
small percentage that we take
What is
on that.
do you have a standard percentage or what's the ballpark of percentage? What is that?
It's usually around 20%.
Okay.
For
Gotcha.
online,
And
and it's
that's you.
significantly smaller than that for the tour percentage that we take for
Okay.
me.
So it varies. Got it. For online versus in person.
Yeah, so typically for our touring clients, we take a significantly smaller percent, like a single digit percentage on
Hmm.
on total sales, and that's for the additional management that we provide the artists and tracking all of the inventory levels and making sure that we're effectively part of the tour team. We talk to the tour manager, the merch guy, the manager, whoever it may be. We're kind of part of that touring team that the artist has.
Gotcha. Now, I don't know if you know these numbers off the top of your head, but I'm curious. Uh, what is like an average dollar per head in the live space these days? I know it fluctuates by genre and capacity, but for like, let's say clubs, like mid-level clubs, 1,500 cap clubs, something like that. Do you see kind of an average or a ballpark or a range these days?
Yes, absolutely, and it really varies genre to genre. I would say for us, for a club show or small theater show, somewhere around $13.50 to $15 per head is kind of average. But those numbers can really fluctuate depending on the artist. And it's
Mm,
really not by artist size either, or how big you would perceive them as. We have some
okay.
significantly smaller bands that kind of blow those numbers out of the water and doing significantly more per head. And then we have
Mm,
um, some larger artists who maybe have higher ticket sales, but on the per head for merch is significantly lower than a small independent artist. And again, it
mm.
varies genre by genre. We see like a lot of like the active rock and metal bands that we deal with have typically have higher per head numbers. Um, but there's not one set. I would say that we're very keen on the data and the metrics and making sure that these are the things that we're tracking, because
Yeah.
if an artist comes to us and say we have no idea how much merch to order, at least it gives us some foundational information to reference and say, hey, maybe this is, we'll take things into account like ticket counts, pre-sale, the venue size, their travel logistics. Those are all variables that we take into account to be able to give accurate projections and really lean on the
Mm.
data to best inform our clients.
Right on. And I'm assuming that varies if you're a support act versus a headliner.
Yeah, I
What
would
would,
I would say so.
so I'm assuming those are like the headliner numbers. Is it similar in terms of like support acts? Is there a range? Is there a ballpark if someone was trying to estimate? It's like, all right, I'm the opener, playing, mid-level clubs or whatever. Could they also expect $13.50 to $15 per head, or do you think that's less for support acts these days?
Probably less, maybe
Okay.
single digits.
Yeah.
But the other thing to take into consideration too is like, I'm sure there's a lot of times where you may not have heard of the opening band,
Yeah.
but they made a new fan and they're going to walk out with a T-shirt, and I
Yeah.
feel like, that's obviously a tale old as time. So making sure
Right.
that we're tracking those sort of metrics and data to the same degree that we're doing for opening bands and support bands that we are for
Yeah.
the headlining bands. I think that's crucial, because it's if you don't have a T-shirt, or that opening band doesn't have a T-shirt, it they might not even they're probably not getting paid as much to play the show, so they're really banking on those merch sales. So it's just as important that
Yes.
we keep them stocked up and we keep the inventory levels to where every new fan is able to walk away with a T-shirt.
Yeah. How are you tracking these days, or how are you, I should say, maybe helping the artists keep track of the fans that buy the merch, or maybe stay in touch with them or resell to them? I mean, is there a different setup these days at the merch table at a show than there was 20 years ago? The systems that you're using. You mentioned at venue. I mean, is that capturing any customer data when they buy something? Are you asking for an email or a phone number? You mentioned that you work email, SMS marketing, and all of that. Or is it just like before, and instead of handing a $20 bill, they're tapping their phone to the terminal, and that's it. The sale's done, and bye bye customer. I hope I see you again at the next show.
The biggest change is obviously cash sales take up a significantly less chunk of the transactions, where all of it is
Right.
digital now. The fact that we're able to leverage at venue as a payment processing tool means that we're able to see this information a little more granularly, and we're able to track the customer purchases for each show. But in terms of kind of the infrastructure of it, it's still a bunch of black T-shirts at a table and a guy selling them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like it's not like the infrastructure of what merch at shows has changed. I think
Yeah.
like everything else, the technology around it and our ability to leverage things like a QR code where we're able to get that customer data and turn a buyer at a show into a D2C customer as well, and also be able to send them constant, well, not constant, but send them consistent updates with email marketing, and lean into some of the other social strategies that an artist might take, like fan club and pre-release for music, and all of the other, the buzzword super fan areas of
Right.
their, of their business. I feel like
Yeah.
the ability to collect that information directly from the merch table is kind of a big advancement that I see in the industry. And it's something that we're really eager to keep investing into and making
Yeah.
sure that we're trying to get artists bought in on that idea, where we want to be able to make it easy for fans to be able to stay engaged even after the show ends, and be able to receive those sort of digital marketing email blasts and SMS blasts, and be able to stay engaged and in contact with the artist.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is the infrastructure? How are you helping artists or enabling artists to capture their fans' information at a concert?
So typically we're using an app directly through Shopify to do that. So there's kind of a bridge that we layer on top of our Shopify tech stack to be able to allow us to capture those QR codes and be able to funnel them into the existing customer information that we have in Shopify. So the way
Okay.
that the business is really structured is like Shopify is the central source for as much customer data as we can possibly make it. So
Mm-hmm.
with being able to capture the information from the QR codes at the shows, that funnels directly into Shopify, and then Shopify becomes our main source for all of those marketing initiatives that kind of layer on top of the platform.
Got it. Yeah, because I'm curious. It's how I mean, I think it's still wild to me that artists don't get their fans' contact information when they buy tickets to their shows. I mean, Ticketmaster obviously has that information, and they're sharing it with the venue. They should be sharing it with the artist. Like the fact that the fan isn't buying a ticket to the venue just because it's a Tuesday night and they want to go to this venue on a Tuesday night. They're buying a ticket to the venue to see that artist. And so it's like, I feel like it's the artist fan. It's not the fan of the venue, and it's definitely not a fan of Ticketmaster. And so, it's just this weird dichotomy that we have where like there's this like iron wall between the fan and the art and the artist. Like, I don't know another industry where a small business can't get in touch directly with their customer. It's just like a small business will sell to their customer. They can get that customer information. It's this like direct relationship, but we don't have that when a customer buys a ticket to our show, because there's all these intermediaries and it's usually these third-party ticketers. So that is the problem. And so the solution is artists have been trying to figure out ways to get their fans that have already bought tickets, they've already spent money on the artist, get that contact information some way. You're mentioning a QR code at the merch table, but of 1,000 people that are coming to the show, like how many are actually visiting the merch table and scanning that QR code? Yeah, a dozen, couple dozen, whatever. All right, that's a tiny percentage of everybody there. I've seen people do it from the stage, like text this number, this word to this number, and now you're getting maybe like 40% of the room. I've seen people use the tool set.live, where you're like, enter into a raffle. Everybody go to set.live right now. You can, choose the song you want us to play, or like, we're going to give away a merch package so then more people opt in. Like, I'm searching for a creative solution here and seeing if anybody has figured it out other than just like suing Ticketmaster to like get that information. It just boggles me that we can't have it.
You're definitely on the right train of thought with that. And it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I had a really long conversation today with someone about those exact points that you brought up, which is that Ticketmaster, Live Nation, there's so many points at which the customer's data is being given over, probably, without their, without their explicit
consent, right?
Exactly. There's a million points at which that is happening, and the one
Yes.
that best serves the fan and the artist is the one that's like the last on the last on the list, which is like being able to engage directly with the artist at their merch table, where you can have that direct connectivity between fan and and artist. So it's definitely something that we are eager to continue putting resources and energy into figuring out how we can strike a direct connection, because that's kind of what that's kind of the ethos behind what we do, is bringing fans and artists together through merchandise, through physical product. So if we can set up some a digital bridge between both of those through the form of merch, it's like we're doing a good job for our artists, I feel like, and for the fans. So I think the other thing to be mindful of too with that is obviously we're working within the scope of the artist's comfort, right? So we can come to the table with all of these great ideas and with tech that can, increase the likelihood of artists being able to sign up at the merch table. And now we have their email and we can do all these great direct fan engagement opportunities with them. But at the end of the day, there are some bands that just want to like sell t-shirts at the show, and they're not interested in any of that because maybe they like the mystique of just like, we're not going to, we're not going to have a fan club, or we're not going to do any like additional SMS or email marketing. And that's okay too, and I think that it's really about remaining kind of keeping the integrity to the artist brand. And if those sort of additional initiatives is just not within their scope of interest, or they don't desire to do that, we're totally fine with playing ball with that as well.
Well, for the artists that do want to lean in and that understand the importance of the long tail and direct marketing and direct to consumer, fan clubs, direct to fan, whatever you want to call it, engaging their super fans and understanding that, artists with a good amount of super fans, they're not really going to be able to monetize them through streaming. So they better find a way to monetize their super fans some way. They can only play their city so often to get paid directly from their fans. Talk to me how you mentioned fan clubs a couple times. How does that work? Are you managing fan clubs? Do fan clubs exist these days? And if so, what do they look like?
We have the ability to integrate fan clubs directly with the Shopify platform. So really in line with what I was saying, with Shopify being the central hub and the core web presence for the artist, we're able to layer on top of that either directly for the artist or through partnership with other third-party providers, VIP ticketing and fan club providers. We're able to integrate that directly with Shopify. So that is, I feel like the fan club experience, it goes hand in hand with the merchandise element as well, which is why we have so many partnerships with these sort of providers. But at the end of the day, it's kind of all filtering into that Shopify ecosystem, because that really is the main source for, or we try to encourage our artists to make it their main web presence. Have it double as your website, have it double as you put up a new video, drive all of the traffic directly to Shopify so that they're the ones that see it first. And then on top of that, you have the ability to get creative and integrate a fan club or a VIP ticketing or, or some sort of live streaming. Like we did a ton of live streaming over COVID. That was a big thing because obviously bands weren't playing shows, but they would set up and they would do live streams, and we integrate it directly with the Shopify platform. And it was great. So it's a really flexible and dynamic tool that we're able to leverage to be able to offer these sort of additional fan products and services for the artists.
What are some fan club platforms that you integrate with?
So there's a platform, Fangate, which is actually two of my business partners are partners in a platform called Fangate. There is a let's see. We've done integrations with Veeps before. That's another.
They specialize in live streaming. I know.
Right. But it's also something that we are offering to clients as well. And just
Yeah.
because it's really not part of the core merchandise offering, it's kind of something that we're slow rolling out. And again, this sort of the deal that we're doing to create Armada is just giving us additional resources and capacity to be able to really focus our time and attention into these add-ons that we're trying to provide artists directly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think everybody, like you said, super fans is the buzzword these days. Everyone is trying to figure out a way to monetize their super fans, and they are there's a lot of these super fan platforms popping up. And I'm trying to keep track of them. I mean, we had the founder of Even on, Mag Rodriguez, and he was talking about the way that they work their direct to consumer, their super fan platform. There's other ones out there like Open Stage, and I mean, there's just like everyone's kind of doing it in a different way, and I'm just curious if like there are preferred ones that you've worked with or ones where you've seen something creative happen. Of course, like Patreon's been around for a while, but that's more of like a subscription service, which that exists too out there. And I haven't really seen any one platform be the main one where everyone is pointing to is like, okay, this is the fan club platform these days. And I'm just curious if you think anyone out there is doing it well, and why.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that we have direct work experience with right now is really Fangate. That's the primary one.
Yeah,
and obviously there's
okay.
a direct connection between Armada and Fangate as well. So I'd be inclined to promote that one as well. But
Sure.
I think that our goal is to build our own version of that as well, and really have it tailored to the existing services that Armada provides. I really feel like this is an important and a big opportunity for us to be able to integrate something like this, that because we already have the rest of the infrastructure, we're really positioning ourselves to be able to build our own platform so that we can keep everything in our ecosystem, right? We can keep, so for the fan club, you're able to leverage your existing D2C business and your existing tour business and the creative services that we're providing as well, with new designs and ad mats. So we're really keen on investing in our own platform and trying to build that out as a great tool that artists are able to use from Armada.
So where do you see the future of direct-to-consumer and super fandom and fan clubs and all of that heading? How do you see Armada being a leader in this space?
I think that the foundation of what we're doing right now, I think that's we really have the core competence, the core aspects of our business dialed in, right? And I think that what you're going to see more of is the direct artist and fan engagement, whether that is through the Shopify store. Another big buzzword is like the social shopping, right? And having, and having the ability for fans to really engage directly with artists and be able to make it a direct experience. I think that really is going to be the future. I think the closer you can bring the artist and the fan at the end of the day is going to be the direction of our business, and just the D2C and e-commerce business in general.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's, Instagram has stores you can integrate right into Instagram now. Of course, on Spotify and the artist profile, that integrates with Shopify as well. And so it's kind of like, right, on one hand, you want to go to where the fans are and you want to bring, get your merch in front of them where they are, Instagram, Spotify, the show, the live experience. But on the other hand, you want that customer information and that data, and Instagram's not giving that to us. Spotify's not giving that to us. Live Nation's not giving that to us. So it's kind of like, that's why there are, Bandcamp gives that to us. You mentioned Bandcamp before. That's really nice. Every time I make a sale on Bandcamp, no matter what the sale is, I get that customer email, which is nice. Same with Shopify, of course. You get that customer information and that email. So I'd like to, see that moving forward is like, what is that hub going to be? How you mentioned social shopping. I don't know exactly what that means, other than it makes me think of just like, I guess, shopping with your friends socially, or maybe you're shopping, on a TikTok live or something where somebody's
Exactly.
selling you something. Okay,
Exactly.
like on a live stream. Yeah.
I think to your question of what the future really is
Yeah.
in in our niche pocket of the industry, I feel like it really is artists owning their own information, their own
Mm.
customer data, and artists also being able to have their own marketplace that they own completely, right? Like I really think
Mm.
that's been kind of a long-standing trend over the past 5 years with the advent of platforms like Shopify and
Yeah.
and Wix and all these other Squarespace and all these platforms that make it really easy for you to drive your audience directly to a platform that you own and that you control, right? And I think that
Yeah.
trend is probably going to continue to play out, and it will probably make some of the intermediaries that are set up between the artist and the customer, it will probably make them obsolete, and it will be easier for companies like us or for artists on their own to set up their own marketplaces and be able to run these marketplaces and be able to do it directly between artist and fan.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point because, right. Is there a need for these third-party services, some of which I've named? I know, James Blake came out with his own Vault FM and stuff like that. Like, is there a need for these third-party services to exist, or is Shopify going to evolve into this like, are they going to create these features, or is somebody going to create these features using the Shopify as a building block or the infrastructure to create this fan club, this experience for artists and fans? I mean, Bandzoogle, which is in the same category as Squarespace and Wix and whatever, they've created merch stores, and they have like print on demand services through Printful for like the more emerging artists that aren't at the level of selling those big numbers and everything. But they also have fan club built right into the website. And so it's kind of like they have, that feature more or less. And I'm curious, is it going to be something that lives on a third party, like a Vault or an Even or a Patreon or a Bandcamp or OpenStage or whatever is out there? Or is it going to be myband.com, and it's just going to be on each artist is going to have their own website that's powered invisibly by all of these tools and the infrastructure that is now in existence, but just getting better?
My bet would be Shopify. There will probably be ways to layer on all of these specific services that these smaller companies are providing. They're
Right.
probably going to, in some capacity, be absorbed or be a part of the Shopify ecosystem because it is such a behemoth, right? And in my opinion, it's kind of the gold. It's the gold standard for online marketplaces. My guess would be that really, whenever any of these new types of products or ideas, whenever they start to gain momentum, I do feel like it will probably be layered into the existing Shopify ecosystem. And Shopify, in my opinion, will probably remain the hub and the predominant player in the space. But there's a million different apps and different products that have direct integrations with Shopify, and we have our own app that we've built that integrates directly into Shopify. So I really think that it's very difficult to compete against something that size, right? Just with the inherent scale of them as an entity, and I really do think that it is going to be kind of like a it will be a consolidation, in my opinion. It will be a consolidation of all of these add-on services that just exist within the network and within the ecosystem, and that will probably make it easy and streamlined for companies like us that are offering e-commerce as a service to be able to really have our infrastructure on a tech side dialed in with our main provider, and we've built an ecosystem kind of around Shopify being the center point in a lot of ways. So I do feel like that's probably going to be a trend that's going to continue playing out. And then maybe a new player will come in and will replace Shopify. Who knows? But
Yeah.
and it will just be kind of a start over where there'll be an ecosystem that's built around that. But if I had to
Yeah.
guess, I feel like that's probably going to be the trend.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's, I mean, yeah, they have so many features. It can be overwhelming a bit, of course, for those that aren't, and it can be expensive for the emerging artists that might not, have that budget. But yeah, it makes sense. We just had, well, I'm curious though, just like functionally, we just had Churchill Williams from Terrible merch on, where they have a larger presence in the UK. For indie artists and stuff, and she was talking about how, like, even in the States, like, they are using Shopify actually for the live sales for tours instead of at venue, and they have a whole terminal and it's able to sync up with the online sales in real time, managing that inventory. I'm curious why you're still using at venue, or maybe if you're planning to integrate Shopify into the live space too.
Maybe. I mean, I think right now we're really we're really acclimated to the way that at venue gives us the data for us to react to quickly, right? And it's really kind of a focal point of how our touring team has been trained, is around the concept of at venue being the core tool that we're using to manage all of the day-to-day information that's happening out on the road, kind of feeding back to the office so that we can react accordingly. But that's not to say that we're obviously flexible, and if there's a better, superior option, we're gonna vet it, and we're gonna see if it's worth switching. We're really not married to any long-term platform, because as I kind of alluded to before, they change all the time. There's always a new new player, there's a new platform, or there's something that we're exposed to that we go, man, this is a better option. It's worth us checking it out. So I like the way that our infrastructure is built. It really relies on both tools, but again, we're always going to look for the best option and go in that direction.
Talk to me about pre-release campaigns. I know that is where a lot of artists can drive a good amount of sales in advance of their album coming out. There's a lot to talk about. Meaning, Chance the Rapper is currently running a pre-release album campaign, which I think is brilliant. He's selling CDs, but the hook is that the CDs, and he's put this great video out, is that the CD comes with like an NFC chip on the jewel case, where like you can literally tap your phone to the CD, and the music will, like, you'll have the album on your phone that you can just listen to on the phone, but you buy the CD as like a souvenir. You can do the same to t-shirts and stuff. And I thought it was really creative. He's doing like a free shipping thing right now, so you can buy an $8 CD right now from his website with free shipping, or no matter what you're buying and all that. I'm curious if you've seen other like similarly like creative pre-release campaigns, or some that you've done, or what is working these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of we've done similar projects where there's a QR code and you can scan it, right, and it will download directly. A lot of it, a lot of the bundling we can get really creative with having 4 or 5 different variants of records that are being sold on pre-order, and being able to build out specific merch bundles around each variant and each option. In terms of I'm trying to think what we've done. A lot of it comes down to also the way that we're rolling out the product and the coordination leading up to the announcement of a new record. Something that we've seen before is having a VIP customer base. If there's customers that have purchased, your top customers in the store get early access to a new record, or they're able to pre-save the record before it officially drops, or there's news of the release. So utilizing those super fan, another buzzword, but those super fan communities to be able to release product as a pre-order, I think is really where a lot of those sort of initiatives that we've done have fallen into. And in terms of like the actual product that we've made, like for these pre-order campaigns, like we've done we've done hammers, axes, any sort of t-shirt, garment, like any sort of promo item.
Axes.
Yeah,
What do you mean hammers, axes? Are you talking like physical hammers and physical axes?
like something like
oh
this.
wow, you got a big axe right there.
And
Holy shit! All right,
right next to my desk.
That's what do you tell UPS when you're going to ship 100 axes out?
yeah.
That's
I mean,
funny.
It's
cool.
But just as an example of how creative we can get with product.
Dope.
And a lot of the pre-orders that we're doing kind of revolves around how creative can we get with what we're releasing to complement the record release, because at the end of the day, the record itself, there's not a lot of utility in having of a vinyl record. You can stream the music, you can listen to it digitally, but like what we're doing is creating what I feel like we're creating memorabilia, right? So we want to be able to pair that with other physical product that serves the same purpose. So that's kind of where our thoughts are in terms of how we approach building these product lines to complement a pre-order campaign.
Nice. Very cool. So just kind of coming full circle, getting back to this new venture now. I mean, these two entities, Downright and now with Overcast and this Armada. I mean, are you still functioning, I guess, as like two different companies that are just kind of under this umbrella? Have you integrated the technology and the services and the teams and I guess functionally, how is this going to be working moving forward, and where does this all go from here?
It will be a full integration between both companies. So our goal is to have all of the existing platforms and the teams and the departments and all of our specific processes to merge into one. And we really want to put our commitment towards building the Armada brand. And that's cool. Tough, we've really worked hard at getting ahead of and planning some of these really intricate and complex integrations over the past 5-6 months, longer than that actually, but really trying to get ahead of how can we actually plan out what the company is going to look like on day one. And now we're sitting here on day 2. I do feel like we did a good job at kind of the foresight that we had to say, okay, these are the big ticket items and really where we need to put our time and attention to making sure that we can merge everything operationally so that we're able to operate efficiently on day 1. And then beyond that, a lot of the other stuff that we talked at length about was around the culture and around the ethos of the company. And how do we want both companies with offices all around the world, how can we bring everybody together and unify everybody around the idea of what our mission is, right? To create and distribute great merchandise and great memorabilia for artists. And I think a lot of the cultural integration also took up just as much time as the operational intricate type work.
Sure. If artists are out there listening, or managers, indie labels, and they want to use Armada for merch, what are the steps to go about getting in touch, and when are artists ready? At what level do you think it makes sense? Or I'm assuming because you work on primarily a commission-based model, you can't take everybody on if they're not selling at a certain level. Of course, it doesn't make it worthwhile for your time. But talk to me about kind of when artists are ready and how they would go about getting started with you.
Well, there definitely needs to be an existing audience, right? And there is a point where it makes sense for an artist to partner with a company like this. In terms of specific metrics and data that we look for, it varies. There isn't a specific number where you have to have X amount of monthly listeners or you have to have X amount of ticket sales and then you can be a client of Armada. It's a lot more nuanced. A lot of it is looking at what the future growth trajectory for an artist looks like, looking at areas that we can provide value. But there does have to be an audience, right? So we look for, is there Is there an album release coming up? Is it coming out on a label? Is there touring plans coming up? So just kind of the existing, the existing infrastructure around the band is definitely something that we want to take a look at and say, okay, does it make sense for a merch company to also be in that, in that. So yeah, but it really varies. Again, a lot of it is we love working with, great managers and artists. And I guess what we look for is clients that are really eager to grow their merchandise business and want to invest in it and want to take the time to be partners at the end of the day. I think that we're ready to be as involved as really any artist needs us to be. So I think that we really look for people that have that same gumption, that want to truly partner with a company like us.
Right on. Cool. Well, Seamus, thank you so much for diving deep into all things artist merch. And congrats on this merger. That's very exciting. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I guess that's definitely subjective. Making it mean something different to everybody, right? I guess for me, I want to build a company that stands for something, right? I want to build something that's long lasting, and I want to be seen as innovative at the end of the day. And I know that's kind of vague and open ended, but we want to change things, and I think we want to be at the forefront of innovation and change and progression within our industry. And if we're able to do that, I would look back and say, I think we made it.
Right on. Seamus, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, Ari.
This episode was edited by Peter Schrupp with music by Brassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.